So first of all, welcome to Norway. How do you find it so far?
Great, yeah, it's great to be back. I've been here many times, so.
And you're known as being one of the founding partners, or what do you call it, musicians in
Sure.
Smashing Pumpkins, a drummer, a world-known drummer, and now turned investor. How has that changed your everyday life?
It hasn't changed that much. I mean, I really think that the role of technology has really kind of taken over where music left off. I think technology has gone from being a utility to becoming something that makes us feel things. So I think for me as an artist, it's a natural segue into the vertical.
And you're here today to talk about your experience with investing in cultural movements and artists. And what makes a good investment?
Something that can make people feel things, something that's in lockstep with the culture, something that can keep pace with the consumption habits of its users. Social media is a good example of things that have become somewhat generational and have really, my kids don't want to be on my social media, right? And my parents didn't use social media, but if they did, I wouldn't want to be on that social media, right? So the challenge is, and with bands as well, right? To stay culturally current is really what I look for, something that can leap culture and maintain a pace with the consumption habits of the people that are going to be using it.
But is it possible to earn money on cultural investments?
Well, I think investments that tap into culture, I think, is what I'm talking about, really. I think what I'm going to be talking about today is just the journey from when the Pumpkins started out, how they interfaced with the culture, how that culture changed, and how that impacted our brand, right? How that impacted our music, and really gave me an interesting vantage point as far as how I look at things today.
And what type of projects attract you?
Any type of engagement platforms, things like that, things that are community building, those types of things are interesting to me because you can see movement within the culture, right?
So what kind of social media do you use in your everyday life?
I use Twitter a lot, right? I use Instagram a lot. I'm not really a Facebook guy just because I'm somewhat private, right? But I use those a lot as both a communication mechanism and as a news feed, right?
And is there anything you learned from your experience touring with the Smashing Pumpkins that's essential to what defines you as an investor?
Read, right? I mean, just the more information you can amass about anything makes you a better investor, right? I mean, for me as a consultant, I generally try to find things where there's a tailwind. Where there's not a big learning curve, something like in media, entertainment, things where I have relationships, where I have an ability to open doors for people. Those are the things that make the most sense for me.
And there's a lot of tech companies, startups that are struggling to attract investors. Do you have any tips or expert advice to give them to attract your attention?
I always look for companies that have managed to do it on their own for as long as possible. I think there's a real danger with calling investment a business, right? I think a lot of companies go look for money too soon, and it ends up hampering their ability to foment their vision, right? With the Pumpkins, it's interesting because we saved all our money for 3 years and paid for our first record with our own money. So we were able to create autonomy within our band and keep the record company at bay just because we weren't using their capital, right? I think that's a great lesson for young companies right now. I think if you're out there with the idea that you're going to raise money just to see if an idea works, that's not something that I'm interested in.
So how much do you typically invest in companies that you like or love?
For me, it's really how much time I want to spend, right? Like spending $50,000 or $25,000 or $100,000, it just ends up creating a portfolio that ends up being hard to manage, right? So for me, I really look for companies where I can add firepower just on a personal level, and really companies I want to help out, because I know a lot of guys who have 5, 7, 9, 10 companies, and their day job is really managing what the heck the companies are doing rather than adding their firepower to the companies, right? So right now I'm only working with two separate companies, one of which is my old company, Live One, and then another company that I'm not going to disclose, but I try to keep it small and compartmentalized so I can add power to it just on a personal level.
Is there anything you miss by not being on the road or touring?
Not really. I'm on the road now,
Yeah.
right? So I'm tired, I'm jet lagged, so
Yeah.
I get a little bit of that anyway. But you know, I did some touring with the band last year, and it's good now because now I can kind of come in and come out of the band when I want to, and it doesn't really take up 100% of my life. So I don't, you know, do I miss being in the circus? No.
But do you use music as therapy now that you have like a lot of things going on like business-wise?
I still play a lot, so I play in a jazz band. I tour a bit with them. We just got back from Japan, so I really enjoy doing that. Most of my free time is spent in and around education, teaching kids. I sit on the board of directors for Columbia College in Chicago, so that takes up a lot of my time. But again, I think for me, you know, having had a successful career in the music industry and, you know, having an interesting vantage point, for me at this point, it's really about giving back, right? Giving back to kids, trying to save people time, you know, save people from making some of the mistakes that I made. So that's really where I find most of my pleasure, other than my own 2 kids or my wife, obviously. But really for me, it's just become about giving back, community building, teaching at schools, going to music programs, and just being available.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So thank you. It's very nice
Thank
to
you.
meet you, and good luck on stage.
Thank you.